Hey guys, welcome to my new space. You might notice that it looks a little different. My husband recently got me a new desk, so I kind of rearranged a little bit and I'm enjoying it. So I might do a desk tour soon if you guys want to see that, but I really want to get into tonight's topic. I have a cup of tea. It's an orange spice. It's really good. But anyway, so you may have noticed from the title of the video that tonight I'm going to talk about something rather deep and personal. And this is something that I've kind of talked about here and there a little bit on this channel, but something happened recently that inspired me to essentially come and make this video and share a little bit more in depth of this topic and my experiences. So I guess I will give that little background first and then kind of go from there. Um, Essentially, the wonderful Kelly Ann Maddox is doing her Self Love September, and she recently had shared on um, social media platforms that she wanted those who follow her to share what they love about themselves. And the first thing that came to my mind was an experience that I had after my mother's passing, where I was sitting in therapy and I was basically telling my therapist that I felt completely swallowed by my grief. And my therapist looked at me and she said, I believe that some people are born with an astoundingly resilient spirit, and that you are one of those people. And I had this knee-jerk reaction that I usually do when people tell me things like this, that I wanted to immediately disregard it and not believe her. But there was the other side of me that was essentially saying, no, this is true. This is true about you. And especially for everything that I had just gone through with my mother's passing, I felt I actually believed it. And I started to understand the true resilience that I had and that I could love that about myself. And so that's essentially what I'm going to talk about tonight is the fact that a one of the worst moments in my life has taught me how truly resilient I am and what it has taught me about loving myself. Um, See, now this is really going to more apply to someone who perhaps has my experience, at least from my personal um, story here, in the sense that I had a pretty loving and positive relationship with my mother. I had problems, as we all do, with our parents and our family, which of course I won't get into, but you know, ultimately I loved her very dearly, and she was the person that I would call when my world was falling apart. So she was the person that was always standing behind me, cheering me on, and always encouraging me. And she supported everything I did. She supported my spiritual beliefs. She supported my artistic nature. She supported the fact that I was so painfully introverted versus compared to her, who was an extrovert. She just she loved me for who I was, and I didn't doubt that ever. Um, so when I lost her, I basically had to learn to love myself the way that she loved me. And I basically had to understand the amount of resilience that I could muster in a time of complete tragedy where my whole world was upside down. My mother died of cancer, and she initially was diagnosed with cancer when I was in high school, and she died in March of 2018. So she has not been gone very long still. Um, but her cancer, as far as we knew, was in remission. And oh goodness, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Um, And as far as we knew, she was fine, but she started to have issues with memory and she started to have issues with energy to the point where my siblings and I became concerned because my mother was always very sharp. She never forgot a thing, so it just became very bizarre. And it we noticed her illness and her issues on Thanksgiving. And by New Year's, she was in the hospital. And by the end of January, which is my birthday, we knew that she was terminal and that it was everywhere. Um, it spread very quickly. It spread through her spinal fluid, and she began to exhibit basically symptoms of Alzheimer's. So she would have moments of clarity, but she would have she would kind of flash back in time. So not only did I watch my mother deteriorate physically, but I watched her deteriorate mentally, and it was excruciating. Um, and not only that, but my siblings and I were the only ones left to try and help her and to make decisions for her that we had no idea what we were doing. And it was incredible the amount of resilience that my siblings and I showed. But I'm going to take a sip of my tea. For me specifically, um, I really, once I was able to get out to Washington to see her, I saw her on a Friday and Sunday afternoon she was gone. That's how quickly this happened. And I only had a few moments here and there with her, but she was unrecognizable to me. And I had seen her previously um in September of so just about 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. So it was very quick. And it just so happened that my mother, I ended up being dropped off to go see her the afternoon that she passed away. And then within the 10 minutes that my brother had left to go get another family member to come see my mother was alone and I had come in and she was in distress. So I had called the nurses and they came in and they told me that she had minutes. So it fell upon me alone, to be the one to say goodbye. And I can tell you in that moment, it felt like I was both shattering and coming together at the same time. Ultimately, I wanted nothing more than to tell her, please don't leave me. But I said that I could feel my grandfather's presence because I had an experience with him the night before she died. So I knew that he was there. And I told her that he was waiting for her. And I cannot begin to describe the amount of strength that took to say that when the person that's loved you unconditionally, the person that's given you life, leaves you. And you have to be the person that guides them out of this life. And knowing that I won't have her here to help me through motherhood and to encourage me and to guide me. I had her for the first few years of being a mother, and I would call her and I would just be like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm cut out for this. What if I screw them up? What if I'm a terrible mother? And she just, every single time she said, you can't fail. It's not in you. You cannot fail. And I thought after she died, how in the hell am I going to find the courage to see myself the way that she did? How am I going to face myself and love who I am the way that she saw me. And then it started to happen. And it's not perfect because truthfully, self-love, it's a ongoing, continuous practice. But before I knew it, I began healing in ways that I didn't ever think possible. I started to face things that I was just running from for years. Um, and I made unbelievable strides in facing traumas, in discovering things about myself, um, in facing my own mental illness and discovering that I have PTSD, in fighting my own depression and anxiety, and finding out, really truly understanding how far I've come with depression and how far I've come with wanting to be here versus not wanting to be here. And it all came from carrying her love from her death and continuing to carry it with me as I walk through life without her. It's remarkable I'm doing this without crying, but I'm trying really hard. Like I said, this one was going to be really personal, but I wanted to talk about how we underestimate our strength and we don't see it. And everyone else around us is looking at us like, why don't you see this? Don't you realize what you just did? You climbed fucking Everest and you're standing here thinking that you can't go over this tiny hill. And I just I I felt like I had to completely reinvent myself and relearn so many things about myself after she passed. And the courage that I displayed, I still to this day try to downplay. But the truth is that I think that was one of the bravest things I have ever done was hold my mother's hand and usher her into this next life, into this next transition. When I can honestly tell you, I didn't want to. And I wanted to tell her again, as I said, I wanted to say, please don't leave me. But um we, in the face of our challenges, when we are at our worst, when we're at the bottom of this deep dark hole, we think, my God, there's no way I'm going to climb out of this. I think we truly don't see how powerful we really are. And aside from my grief and my loss of her, I have known this from struggling with depression and struggling with self-image, but I don't think I give myself enough credit to the wondrous things that I have done and what I have really done to discover myself and truly be happy and truly be whole within who I am and love every aspect of who I am. And again, I will say this is a practice. I am not going to wake up one day and love everything about myself. But I wanted to come on here and talk about this on my channel because I really wanted to I want to continue this to stress the importance of self-worth, self-love, mental health, and mental health awareness. Those are things that I am going to continually speak out about on here because I'd like to use this platform to not only share my stories in a sense, because they're deeply tied with my spiritual journey. After my mother's passing, my spiritual journey became even stronger. My abilities as a medium just essentially completely broke out, and I started to go down the path of discovering that and truly understanding that about myself. That was just one fragment of all of these other things that occurred through my loss. And I truly felt like I was going through a spiritual awakening and that I was coming together and being torn apart at the same time. It's so hard to explain, but it's important for me to share these things, and why I wanted to make this deeply emotional video is because I want to encourage others to see themselves in this way. Going through this made me love myself all the more when I honestly expected that I would completely fall apart, that I'd completely break down. But again, it is though I carried her love for me with me now. And I hope to continue to do that. And I hope to continue to project my mother's kind spirit and my mother's loving energy into the things that I do and how I treat others, and the kindness that I try to project, and the hope that I hope to give. That's why I wanted to talk about this. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thanks guys for watching. I know this was a heavy one, but yeah, let's be.